Welcome to another episode of Mind Like Books, or should I say, another episode of why we don't want to live anymore. This time we'll dive deep into hating ourselves, discussing our regrets, and just pondering on existence and maybe not even want to exist anymore. So how depressed are you today, Paolo?
I'm more confused than depressed. But
Why are you confused?
like big decisions ahead of.
Yeah, the reason you haven't been on the podcast for a while is that you've been super busy in your life.
Yeah.
You're going through a similar change than I've been through with the job change.
Yes, at least I did that while I was also moving. So I have that going for me.
So you have to consider which book you will choose to suffer through this. When you start a new job and you choose a book, it's going to be a pain.
I already know which book I'm going to read.
Which one?
It's going to be the third one in the Mistborn series.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm 70% done with the second book.
Okay.
So if I start a new job soonish, then I'll probably be reading the third one.
You've told me that the first one of the Mistborn series is exactly what I asked for when we talked about the Stormlight series, so I should read that.
Yes, yeah. So for everyone listening, especially Martin, I've been pitching Mistborn to Philip. Please read Mistborn.
Okay.
It's much shorter. It's literally half the pages, and it's exactly what you want. I think. Unless you really dislike the characters, which is possible, I think you will really like everything about it.
Yeah, I'm excited. It sounds like a relaxing read. Yeah, so we're excited to hear you again. I missed you dearly.
Really?
Yeah, it's fun to talk to you. You bring something to the podcast that nobody else does. Like, you have a way of thinking, and you have a way of looking at things, and you know a lot about history, which nobody knows on this podcast.
I pretend to know a lot about
You don't
history.
pretend, you know, and you've read a lot, and you know what you're talking about.
Okay,
unlike some people, me included. Like, I am here for the fun of it, but you're here to actually say something malleable and, like, informationally valuable. so thank you for that. I missed that.
Thank you very much.
So today, talking about The Stranger by...
It should be Albert Camus.
Okay.
Or Camus.
Yeah.
I don't know.
My guess was something like Albert Camus. So this is another one of those probably super famous people.
Yeah.
But I don't remember him from school. Do you?
I didn't study him in school at all. In Italy, we usually don't study foreign literature. So we usually only study Italian literature. Then we study English literature in English class. I also took French class, so I also studied French literature.
That makes sense, yeah.
But for French literature, we never got to the 20th century, I think.
Yeah, so this was the time during the First and Second World War, and reading this at that time, oh my god. It's like, can you imagine reading this book and the war is like happening around you and people dying?
Yeah.
And then you're just like, let me relax, read a book, so I can distract myself from all this suffering. What?
Well, I mean, you can read another book.
Yes, but I was thinking about this, like it completely makes sense what he wrote and why he wrote it, but at the same time, who enjoys this? I'm sorry to say that to you, like nowadays, I kind of enjoyed it. Like, I understand why people read it nowadays, but at the time, who liked that at the time?
I mean, at that time, existentialism was a pretty popular literature.
Of course, like, people who enjoyed that kind of thing, but I mean more like mass appeal, like the general audience.
I mean, like, to be fair, at that time, like, literature in general was not really...
Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, I don't want to say it was not popular, like...
I understand. What I'm trying to say is that I looked this book up and it gets so many reviews. Like, for example, on Goodreads, it's like 1 million reviews, which some books that are really popular, like Stormlight Archive, I think that's like 200,000 reviews.
Yeah.
And I thought that's super popular.
Yeah.
That this book has 1 million reviews? Who's reading this?
Well, I mean, it is one of those, like, super classics that, like, if you want to be a snob like me, and basically you have to read. Like, after it came out, Sartre, who was, like, another one of these, like, crazy people, he wrote a book just to explain this book. He was fanboying so much about it that he wrote a book like 5 years later just to explain all of the meanings behind this book. So yeah,
I enjoyed it. It's well written. It's made me it's very thought provoking.
Yeah.
But boy, did it put me in a bad mood. Is this why you said I would hate it? Did you think I would be sad when I read it?
I thought you would hate it because the plot is very much about nothing in the first part.
That's not true.
Well, I also think it's not true, but I thought maybe you would feel that way.
That part I didn't care about.
Yeah.
I think that's completely fine.
Okay.
That's what I actually expected.
Yeah. But I would say this, just to prepare you for episode 100, because eventually it will arrive. Like, if this made you feel, like, depressed or bad at yourself, like for me, like, if I compare this to Journey to the End of the Dark, like, sorry, Journey to the End of the Dark.
Journey to the End of Death.
I just mixed, like, Journey Through the Dark, which is a Blind Guardian song, and Journey to the End of the Night, which is the book I was talking about, by Celine. This is, like, 1/10 of
oh my god,
how sick I felt by reading Journey to the End of the Night. So, yeah. Maybe you should read that book.
I'm gonna have to like buy some kind of a special spa treatment and then like get high or something, and then maybe I'll.
Yeah, I think so. You should probably drink it. You should probably read it while drinking or like while smoking something.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I can't wait for episode 100.
Yeah, we still have a long way to go.
So Albert Camus. So he got the Nobel Prize for Literature. Second youngest ever to get that.
Yeah.
At 44 years old.
Pretty impressive.
And then he died at 46.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Apparently.
Depression points should be reintroduced on this.
Yeah. Getting a Nobel Prize doesn't give you immortality.
So he was born in Algeria.
Yeah.
And his parents went there to find better life. Do you think they found better life?
Well.
Okay, so we went to Japan to find better life. Have we found better life?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, okay. I didn't expect it at all. I thought you would be like, yeah, it's borderline average or something.
No. No. Like, coming to Japan has been the best decision in my life by far.
That's amazing. It's something positive. I can't believe it. You said it. So, of course, he's famous for existentialism, even though he says he's not. I read on Wikipedia or somewhere that he paved the way to depression or something. Depression is... No, sorry.
Paved the way to depression.
No, not for depression. Pessimism.
Yeah, pessimism.
He paved the way to pessimism. What does that even mean? Like, did he tell the world how to feel pessimistic? Is that what they're saying?
Well, I mean, positivism was a big philosophical way of thinking in the late 19th century. So I guess this was a good response to that.
Yeah.
And considering that positivism was shit, pretty good.
Yeah. So I don't really want to like give a history lesson. Is there something you want to say about him?
Well, I mean, the fact that he grew up in Algeria, of course, is extremely relevant for this book.
Exactly. We'll talk about it in the study, I guess.
I will also say that I don't know too much about, life in the French colonies in the Maghreb. I can't say much about it, but it definitely had an impact in the way he felt, difference between Arabs and, colons living there.
Colons?
Yeah.
Colonizers.
Colonists.
Colonists?
Yeah.
It's your colon.
Yeah, no. Like, yeah. That was like a joke I always made, like when I play Age of Empires board game.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
That's fine.
Anyway, it clearly created like a distance, a wall in his mind between like colonists, French colonists living in Algeria and the locals living there.
I found a strange fact that the people who are French and are born in Algeria to colonists are called Blackfeet.
Oh, really?
Blackfoot, I think it's Pierre Noir or something.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if it's like a bad thing to say that. Do you think so?
It's probably not, not so good.
So, he was living there during the Algerian War, and then he moves to Europe and he experienced the First and Second World War. Amazing.
Great times to move to Europe.
Oh my God.
Especially to France.
At 20 years old, he got tuberculosis.
Yeah.
Didn't die of that, but his girlfriend was constantly getting morphine because he had health problems. All kinds of stuff happened. And he had children, and he died in a car accident.
Yeah.
In the car was his last book, and they saved his manuscript from the car accident.
Yeah, but not his life.
And he and he predicted himself that the last book would be his finest masterpiece. Have you read anything else from him?
No. I've been wanting to read The Myth of Sisyphus for a long time. I'm not sure if I'll ever do that. I mean, it sounds very interesting, but at the same time, like it feels like I want to read it more because it feels snobbish to read it rather than...
I like how you keep saying it's like kind of snobbish. I mean, it depends how you used what you did. Like I don't think you're a snobbish person in the sense that you go to a meeting where you drink wine and you're like, oh, I've read The Stranger last week. Let me tell you all about it.
The Stranger. Let me tell you about this book called Le Stranger. L'étranger.
So it was released in 1942 and 160 pages, super short.
Yeah.
I listened to the audiobook and read it. The audiobook is strangely more depressing than the written book.
Because you can hear the depression in the voice.
No, I don't know why. The guy who was reading it, I don't know his name, he was like kind of playing it up with the like being indifferent.
Okay.
It wasn't like on the nose, but it was like you could hear it in the voice, but it wasn't like that what was bothering me. Somehow I was very bothered by the audiobook much more than the text.
I mean, I'm not surprised. Like, it must be a hard book to read, like out loud.
Yeah, that's
just
true.
because like it's hard to convey a feeling of apathy, given that it literally means no feeling.
It is.
But if you speak in an apathetic way, then it's pretty boring.
He did sound like that.
Yeah, I think it's a very good book. Sorry, it's a very bad book for an audiobook. Like if you want to get in that mood, I guess.
I had a very strange. Yes, I was constantly in a bad mood when I listened to it, and when I read it, I was constantly thinking about how I could be in a bad mood. Maybe we could mention that it was adapted in two movies. One of them is Italian, and the other one is Turkish. Have you seen the pictures from the movies?
I haven't.
It's so funny. It's
really?
like they've picked the most depressed looking people. I was like thinking about the audition. I was like, so we have like 7 actors here. Please sit in this room and look depressed. You look miserable. Hired.
It is interesting because like whenever I find like these old literature books from like the 19th century or like 80 years ago or whatever, there are always these movie adaptations which are generally like either French or Italian.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know anyone who has watched those movies. Like,
so before we move on to the second part, the spoilers, I'd like to say that this book felt to me like, you know how anime is slice of life? So this is like French depression during the war slice of life.
Okay.
I felt like that. It was too real to me.
Right.
It felt very relatable, even though it's from a different time. And it felt very like you can feel what the person was feeling very easily. So would I recommend this? I guess yes, because if you don't want to read this, you already know without me talking about it. Like if you don't want to read this, you're not listening. Like I mean,
okay, why? You should be listening to every episode. How dare you?
I'm not that naive. I mean, if you're a person who doesn't want to read this, you're not listening to this episode. Okay. You're listening to the episode of curiosity. And you are curious about like a very famous, well-written, very realistically portrayed, indifferent, depressed person. I would recommend it. Like it's interesting, and it didn't bore me at all. It was easy to read, and it was very thought-provoking.
Yeah, it's surprisingly easy to read for a book this old, and it's really short. Yeah. I think it's a really good book. I would recommend. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. Just because I think a lot of people wouldn't be interested in this kind of books. But if you want to read something different, even if you're not that much into literature or like surreal experiences and surreal stories, I would still recommend it, again, just because it's really short, easy to read. As much as it is full of symbolism, the symbolism is not like too abstract.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, I have no clue what the fuck is going on. That's
very much appreciated. I was expecting a lot of stimulus and allegories and like abstract thoughts, but it was very understandable, all of it. And I don't think it went over my head at any point. Like, I was expecting that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, yes, if you want to feel depressed, I recommend... No, I'm kidding. I mean, if you want to try this, like if you're at least remotely curious, yeah, I recommend it. It's an interesting read. Like, I don't hate it at all. Okay. It's what I'm saying.
That's a very strange compliment.
So let's move on to the spoilers. We'll sum up the plot, and then I'm sure we have lots to talk about. So Paolo told me to I will hate this. I was like super hyped for this. I got this book and I was like, oh boy, what's gonna happen this time? Who's gonna kill themselves this time? Oh boy. And I opened the book and I was like, my mother died. I was like, oh, it's already happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was literally like, who's gonna die this time?
Yeah.
My mother died.
Well, I mean, if you have learned anything from when we did the Dostoevsky short stories, that's how it works.
That's how it works.
You start with someone dying.
So I was kind of prepared, like, to not be sad.
Okay.
And I was trying so hard not to be sad, and somehow I still got sad.
Okay.
Did you feel sad? Well,
I didn't feel sad.
I didn't mean sad in the sense of, like, was sad for the character, or sad for what happened, or what, like, they were talking about. Somehow it just put me in a sad mood.
It is, like, I guess the overall reason why Camus is so famous is that it is about the meaningless and the pointlessness of life. Mm-hmm. Starting from the beginning, the death of the main character's mother seems to be not irrelevant, but like very much as a very material thing, which I know, like, in a way it sounds like, okay, if you're focusing on something so much, like if you have such a materialistic perspective, then it means it's not true. You're a very rational person. You're not apathetic. You're not like depressed or anything. But I think it's kind of the opposite. Like, even something as, impactful as the death of a parent for the main character is just task, essentially. He has to do. Like, oh, I have to go to my mother's funeral. I have to wear these clothes. And I'm supposed to sit here.
I think it was the details maybe they got to me, like, under my skin.
Okay.
Like, I remember, so he went to the funeral. So the book is describing this man's life, and it's a very, very down-to-earth, realistically describing of like the common life. That's what happens. And the character is very much indifferent to everything.
So his mother died in a retirement house, and he didn't know the people who lived and worked there. So he meets the director of the retirement house, whatever it is. And he also meets some of the other, like, elderly people who are living there, including a man who, during that time, developed kind of a nice relationship.
Oh, so it wasn't family.
Mother.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So, so I want to say, he describes how they are walking the procession, and this guy is, like, a little bit tired, and, like, full of behaviors, and there's all the sweat on him, and all this. And I've had these... Right. I've noticed these things before. Yeah. Like, it's kind of weirdly, like, you feel like you're there.
Yeah. Yeah, he's noticing, like, all of these details.
So it's not really what was happening, but more, like, the things around it that got to me. Like this, like, description of the guy who was there.
Yeah. No, I understand. As, unfortunately, most people can relate, like, we've all been to funerals. And in my experience, what was left to me the most is sometimes, like, all of these small things. For example, this person was wearing sunglasses. I had never seen this person wear sunglasses, but I distinctly remember wearing this person wearing sunglasses at this funeral. Or I remember, this thing happening, or like something very banal, like something very, like, unimportant, very down to earth.
Yeah, I don't know why it is that when somebody dies, or I guess it's usually when there's somebody passing away, you remember these things somehow?
Well, I think there is something to be said about the fact that, when you go to a funeral, especially like the first time you go to a funeral, you have seen funerals like on TV in movies, and people are like, crying, or like, there's like these big scenes or whatever. And it feels like this, super shocking event. And you get there, and I don't know in other cultures or anything, but in Italy, funerals are super long. And for the most part, they're just boring. Like, there is a lot of nothing. There is a lot of just standing there and everyone is kind of in a bad mood. And a part of you is like, oh, I'm seeing all of these people. And usually when we all gather together, we're all happy because it's like some celebration. And this time it's not. I want to talk to them because I don't see them so often. But at the same time, it's kind of like a strange situation. And I think funerals, they're kind of boring and awkward. And of course, you're really sad. I don't want to get too personal, but I remember when my grandfather passed away and I went to the funeral. I remember the day of the funeral, I went to school and I was feeling really.
It's the normality that's weird.
And for the most part, it was just nothing. But to your point about the small details, one thing I will never forget. It's the only time where I almost felt like crying was right at the end of the funeral because most people had left and they were burying my grandfather. So they were putting the coffin in the in the hole in the wall, and the guy working at the cemetery he had to put cement to close the hole. But before closing the hole, he took off his hat and he slightly bowed his head. And I mean, it's just, a small sign of respect. So it's nothing. But I don't know. I will never forget that. And that really broke my heart. Seeing that thing. I don't know why. It's really hard to explain.
It makes sense. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
One of the funerals I've been to, I don't know if this is an Eastern European thing, but they had cremation and then they put the urn, some decorated urn. But this one was actually a grave, like a miniature tomb or something, like a nice gravestone. And then on top of it there was some decorations, and then there's space for the coffin, but the coffin wasn't there because it was cremated. So, but they didn't buy the urn, so they had this bag. Okay. With the remains, and they just threw the bag in the hole. And I was like, what? And then I was all this empty space, and there's a small bag. And I was and everybody was looking at this, and I was like, is this okay? And then they closed it, and I was like, what? So I remember that was so strange.
Yeah.
It didn't matter.
Yeah.
But somehow it mattered so much, and everybody was we should do something, but what should we, what?
Right, because I think there is this general sense of awkwardness because everyone is supposed to be very serious and to feel the moment. I think most people don't know how to feel at a funeral. Of course, if it's a person you were close to, you have this grief and you're very sad, but at the same time, unless it's someone you're really broken by the passing of this person, usually the funeral is a few days after. You had a few days to process the thing, and again, in some countries like Italy, it's super long. So you're by that time, maybe you're tired, or maybe it's really hot. So there is just some awkwardness to the whole feeling.
Yeah.
So I think this book portrayed that whole experience really, really well.
Yeah, that's true. And not only the funeral, the other scenes as well.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what I say. This was the first thing that I noticed, and then I noticed it again, in several other situations, which I guess we'll talk about later. So that's, pretty short scene, but the whole, wake and then funeral was quite interesting. I never discussed about this with anyone. And I always thought maybe I'm the strange one.
No, everybody's got that. Yeah. So it's a good book.
Yeah. By the way, something I can't say I thought about this myself because I actually read it on Goodreads. So the old man taking shortcuts to keep up with the with the procession. That should be kind of a meaning of the fact that he's approaching death faster than the others. Because he's supposed to be like really old.
Oh, isn't that just somebody reading way too much into this? Isn't that just like...
Right, I mean, I can see that. Like, it kind of makes sense, right? Yeah. Because I think, if I remember correctly, he actually gets there before everyone else. He takes one shortcut, and he's the first one to the graveyard.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah. So this,
how to be sad even more. Okay. Should have even more depression points.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's move the plot forward, I guess.
Yes.
Funeral happens. All the friends from the retirement home that knew the mother were there, and then they start falling asleep, and nobody cares, and it's like weird, and all the details. Just funeral that's very realistically mundane.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I've wrote in my notes is, something I really liked is the telling of days where nothing happens. After the funeral, there is like a weekend, and in this weekend, like on the first day, something happens. Like he meets like the coworker, the former coworker, and they go on a date and whatever. But the next day, essentially, does nothing, and the whole day just stares out of his window, smokes. And again, this is one of those things where this could have very easily become really boring, but it's not. I thought it was really interesting. Just the description of a day where nothing happens and like the character is doing nothing.
You can relate. Yeah. It was strangely realistic.
Yeah.
So there are these characters in the house where he lives.
Yeah.
And they are all very sad. So one of the guys has a dog, and they keep describing how he goes for walks and how they're both old and how the dog can't keep up. And then, guess what happens? People die and dog dies. Does the dog die?
No. The dog runs away.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah. I thought it died.
Like, okay, no. So this guy, he's a widow. So he's
I remember.
His wife
okay,
died.
Yes.
He replaced his wife with a dog, but not in a loving way. He's constantly beating the dog, and the dog is also misbehaving. But at the same time, you can clearly see that it's kind of like love-hate feeling.
Yeah.
And so the dog runs away at one point, and he's completely distraught by it.
He always said he wanted the dog to be away, and as soon as the dog runs away, he's completely in distress.
Yeah. Exactly. That's one of the neighbors of the main character.
Another neighbor is basically the most important character, maybe, like the guy who's a kind of a friend. I forgot his name.
I also forgot.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So friend of the main character, and he's such a dick.
So, he's supposedly a pimp. Like, he says he's not a pimp, but everyone else says he's a pimp, and until the end, it's not clear exactly.
I think he is.
Yeah, I think the whole point is exactly that you shouldn't know. Like, it's up to you what you want to believe.
It's just another one of those people who are kind of bad, but not really, and you have to tolerate them around you, I guess.
He is the kind of person I have met, especially when I was in junior high school, sometimes also in high school, but especially in junior high school, where like my junior high school was in a kind of a bad neighborhood. And especially at that time when I was in junior high school, that was like the worst time, which I mean, it's not that bad. Like, for rural Italy, like it's just nothing extremely bad, but at the same time, there were people doing drugs and and sometimes, I remember, for example, going to play basketball, and I would meet these people because you were all at the playground, you would play together. Basically, you had to suffer these people, and you were playing together.
Those are teenagers, or like not old people.
Some of them were really bad people, but anyway, you were play together, and you had like this double feeling where on one side you were like, I don't want to play with this person, but at the same time you were like, we're here, we're playing, and playing is fun, playing basketball is fun together. And then, you would talk after the game, and you were kind of like hiding your disgust a little bit, maybe because I was afraid, and a little bit just because like it would just be bad. Like, we literally just played basketball together. I probably shouldn't completely dismiss you. Like, then why did I play with you?
So then the person grows up into this kind of character,
right?
I guess.
So yeah, exactly. I think the main character doesn't feel that way. I think the main character just doesn't give a shit. But this person really reminded me of those people, where it's one of those people where like they are kind of obnoxious and they're kind of like bad people, but they are completely unaware and they really care about being friendly. Like they care about other people, not seeing them as the bad people.
Exactly.
Right? So he's constantly saying, oh, you're my friend.
Yeah.
You're my buddy. Yeah. And don't worry, I got you covered. And until the end, he kind of acts that role.
Yeah.
Right. He goes out of his way to try and defend the main character, but at the same time, it's like,
he believes
you're
he
a
is
really
the best,
shitty person.
He believes he's the best friend, but he's shitty at the same time.
Yeah. And also, like, he doesn't realize that, like, the main character doesn't give a shit about him, like, at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, in reality, he needs the main character more. Like, these people need the friend much more, and they keep saying they're your friend because they want to be the friend.
Yeah.
So, there's this guy.
Yeah.
And he beats his wife.
Not his wife, like, he's kind of like his lover. Yeah.
Then he wants to like apologize, so he asks the main character to write a letter for him.
Well, like he wanted to do something very, very strange. Essentially, he wanted to set a trap. So he wanted her to come to his house so he could beat her and essentially submit her, because essentially he felt like his pride was hurt or something like that.
So she falls into the trap and he beats her.
Yeah.
And the main character's like, okay, I guess I'll do that.
Yeah, I guess I'll write a letter. Like, who cares? Oh, like domestic violence? What is that?
It was, That was also very... Yeah. So at the same time, the main character has like a love interest and they go swimming and movies together.
Yeah.
So right after the funeral.
They also had a very awkward exchange where she's like, do you love me?
Yes, I want to say that. That happened multiple times.
Like, no. What's the point? Like, what's the meaning of this question?
Yeah, and later... sorry.
And she was like, oh, do you want to marry me? And he was like, yeah, if that's what you want, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So pro tip, guys, if you have a girlfriend, pro tip,
Yeah.
if they ask you to, if you love them, or if you want to marry them, and you say, I'll do if you do, or if you want me to, pro tip, that's not gonna fly.
Yeah. That's not going to work very well.
So, and later in the book, that was also like kind of strangely realistically said. She comes back and she's like, I thought about it.
Yeah.
And you said you didn't love me, and I said you'd marry me if I wanted to. Okay. I was like,
yeah, and I didn't know how to feel about her. Like, like I think her name was Marie. Like, why did she love him?
She didn't. She just wanted to be with somebody.
I guess you could say that, but at the same time, like, she seemed like genuinely invested because even after all that happens and. You know, she goes to visit him. Like, she didn't really had to. Like, she genuinely suffered when, like, for everything that happened to the main character. But like, if she just wanted like a boyfriend, she could have gotten like a new boyfriend immediately. So
could she and why she didn't? Could be that she saw the jerk friend.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm glad I'm not with that guy.
Yeah.
I guess this guy's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So I guess
is he?
He's not.
Is he nice?
But compared to this guy, like next to him, then maybe that's why she liked him, because he was so much like not nicer, but so much less bad than the other guy.
Well, I guess he doesn't beat me. Yay!
Yeah, exactly.
Achievement unlocked.
So they go on a weekend holiday together. The jerk guy with his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And the main character with his girlfriend.
No. Just the jerk guy, and like he was alone. He didn't have a girlfriend anymore.
Oh.
Yeah.
But
because
but
the brother of the ex-girlfriend, who was an Arab, was one of the locals. He and his friends wanted to. Like, they were kind of like following jerk guy. Essentially because they wanted to take revenge.
Yeah, because she was beaten like badly.
Yeah.
And so the prick guy asked his friend to check on them if they're waiting for him in front of the house and all this. And there's all this like, the adepts are looking at us and following us and watching us. So they go into this holiday.
Yeah, they go to a beach house. Like, jerk guy has a friend and friend has a beach house, so they go there.
So it's these two people, then the main character and his girlfriend. That's it. For 4 people.
No. Well, it's jerk guy.
Yeah.
Jerk guy's friend and his wife.
Oh, that's okay. So there was another woman.
And then and then the main character and Marie.
I see. Oh, that makes sense now. Okay, thank you. So they keep walking on the beach and everything's nice and dandy, and then the Arabs show up.
Yeah.
And shit goes down, and that's the first half of the book.
Well, I mean, at the beginning, like, nothing happens. Like, there is this very, very tense moment where it feels like something's about to happen.
So there's 3 Arabs. There are 3 Arabs, and they came basically to get revenge.
They go back. Like, the
Nothing
3
happens.
of them, the 3 men, meet the 3 Arabs. But nothing happens. It's really tense. But then they go back to the house. And, they drink and eat and everything else. And like, that's the other place where the details of the feelings where the guy is just like suffering the heat so much, and you can really feel it. Like, he's becoming more and more unable to think straight because just for something very mundane as just like it's really hot.
Yeah, made sense. Yes.
Yeah. So it's just like, okay, just gonna take a revolver, go back and shoot at the guy 5 times.
But before that, he also, the jerk guy got cut with a knife or something?
Yeah. Like, in the very tense moment, like, they had like this small scuffle, like they fight a little, but nothing really happens.
Nothing happened, but he got cut with a knife a little bit. And then this guy just comes in, the main character comes in and just shoots him 5 times.
Yeah.
It was strange.
Yeah.
I get all the justifications, but I didn't feel like
No,
it was
I mean, the
justified.
point is like exactly that it should have been something absurd. Like, why did he do that? There was not really a point. But again, he was so disconnected from everything in the world. It was just like, this guy was dangerous and there was a lot of tension. And you know what? I can shoot it. It's there. It's just do it.
So you think he went there to shoot him because he wanted to help his friend? Or why did he start?
I don't think he wanted to help his friend. I think
there has to be some impulse in the beginning.
I think the whole point was that throughout the whole book, he doesn't think twice about anything, right? He just says whatever comes to his mind. So I think he just saw a revolver and he was like, we just had this fight. This could be like a way to end this situation, which has been kind of annoying. Like something I read is that like his whole character is built in the fact that he doesn't care about the past and he doesn't care about the future. He only lives in the present. That's why he doesn't care about getting married, because getting married is something in the future. He doesn't care about the future. That's why he doesn't have such a strong reaction about his mother passing away, because that's in the past. His relationship with his mother is in the past. He's in the present. Care? No, because in the present his mother is dead. And so at that point he was like, yeah, there is a revolver. I can shoot this guy and kill it.
It was it was very absurd. When he shoots him, he says something, 4 hits to kill happiness. How did he say it?
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, you're right. He says something strange. And the fact that he shot him twice, because he shoots him first and kills him, and then he shoots 4 more times.
Yeah, I think he said 4 knocks on unhappiness.
Yeah. And from this point on, the fact that he shot 5 times is brought up a lot of times. I still don't understand why he shot 5 times. Like, do you have an idea?
Well, since you said it's just in the moment, so I guess he just went to empty the gun. I assume the revolver had 5 bullets.
Oh, really?
He just went to shoot all of them.
Yeah, I mean, if it's all of them, then it makes sense. But
that's the only idea I have. Like, he just kept shooting because there was like because he shot first, and then there was like a long break, I think.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make sense. I thought he would be like bang, bang, bang. But
yeah, he shot him first, and then he was like,
That doesn't make any sense to me at all. The only answer is it's absurd for the story. If it didn't happen, the story wouldn't work.
I mean, there are many things you can read into his decision to shoot him 4 more times. I just can't imagine.
It was the only point in the whole book that wasn't realistic. I felt like.
I mean, it's supposed to not be realistic.
I know, but it felt like felt realistic the whole way, even after this. But this only moment was like, what?
Yeah, fair enough.
But I guess it could happen if the person was just out of it.
That's true.
That's not the point. Like this, I think the point is what happens afterwards.
So he goes to prison.
Yeah, the whole second half of the book is basically him just dealing with it, but not dealing with it at all.
Yeah, well, there is the trial, and there is his life in prison.
And the trial is very, very. I keep saying sad, but it's more like stifling, or you know as a reader it's not gonna go well, and he knows it's not gonna go well, and everybody's telling him it's gonna go well, everybody's telling him it's gonna be okay, everybody's telling him it's gonna help you and all this, and the whole time there is like this daunting like heaviness to it, like it's gonna be shit, and like all the lies and all this.
So I think the second half is very much of a comedy of the absurd. First, like there is this setting in the before the trial, like he speaks to the prosecutor, I think, like which is like this super religious guy, and he has like his lawyer who's like this other like all of the characters from this point on are kind of like characters, like in the sense that like
I know what you mean.
They're like
caricatures.
Masks. Yeah, kind of like caricatures, like not stereotypes, but they're kind of like exactly the type of character to fulfill that role. So there is like the lawyer who's like trying to reassure him, but at the same time he's like, yeah, you should do this and this and this. He's trying to give him very rational advice, but he doesn't want any of that, and he's like, yeah, whatever.
So the whole time the main character is completely out of it, completely indifferent. The whole story is completely indifferent, doesn't care about anything. And then suddenly he gets some feeling during the trial. So
essentially the thing that kind of makes it snap is the fact that in the trial, very quickly the focus shifts to rather than the crime, the funeral, and like essentially like his personality and the fact that he's supposed to be this bad person because he went to his mother's funeral and he drank coffee with milk, which he was not supposed to drink, and you know, he didn't want to see his mother for the last time before they closed the coffin, and all of these small things which are like bullshit, like who cares?
Yeah.
But at the same time though, because he didn't cry at his mother's funeral and it seems like very detached from it.
He had sex the next day, he went to the cinema.
Yeah, people are like, yeah, these are clearly the marks of a bad person, which is like something I could really relate to, because I think if you grew up in rural Italy, this is exactly how people would behave. People would focus so much on these things, like, oh, this guy never said hello to his neighbors. Oh, this guy, he didn't go home for Christmas. Or something like that. People would focus so much on this bullshit. Yeah, I guess...
I think it's just small town syndrome. Like the rural places, not only Italy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I forgot this. I wanted to mention this. So they are in Algeria the whole time.
Yeah.
We kind of said that, but I didn't say that.
Yeah.
And that was so strange to me because it didn't feel like it was in Algeria.
Right.
Okay, they speak French in Algeria and he's French, okay. And there are the Arabs, okay, but it felt like the Arabs are the minority and not him. Like, he should be the minority.
Yes, that was the whole point. The Arabs are intentionally marginalized. Like, if you notice, none of the Arabs have names.
Yeah.
Like, they're just called Arabs.
But that's what I meant. Like, are the people at the trial or non-Arabic?
Yeah, none of them is Arabic. They're all French.
Okay.
And that was the whole point. Like, the person who got killed is an Arab, but they don't invite any Arab to witness. Yes, that's what I meant to say. Yes, they don't ask anything because they don't give a shit. Like, they're French. An Arab died. Who cares?
Okay.
So that was also part of the kind of the undertext. So
then, in that way, it makes sense. I was just confused because they didn't say it.
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of implied, but I didn't feel sure that that's what it was. Okay.
Like the point was like they were trying to prove he was a bad person, not because he killed an Arab, but because he didn't cry at his mother's funeral.
Yeah. Yes. So then I understand. I wasn't sure that was okay.
Yeah. No, all of the person, they were like French colonists.
Because I was expecting there to be all these mundane, depressing like feelings. I was waiting for some culture or something, like, and there wasn't any of that. Like,
I think that was pretty much intentional. Yeah. At the trial, like, there are all of these other like small subplots. Again, like the prosecutor being like super religious and trying to say that essentially he has to save him, like he has to redeem him, and and there is like the journalist,
all kinds of weird people,
and then there is like the witnesses who come to testify in his defense, like the jerk.
There are all these moments that kind of just somehow gets under your skin, like the moment when the girlfriend comes to testify. So she's sitting there and he doesn't even look at her. And then he finally, I should probably look at her. And she's there sitting, like, waiting for him to look at her. And you're like, It's all these moments in the trial.
The goal here, I think, it was to make you think about: is he a bad person?
Yes.
Or is he not a bad person? What makes a bad person?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can clearly see his perspective, right? So everyone is judging him from his role in society. But you see his feelings, and at the same time, he has no regret about killing that's like one of the big points. They ask him, do you regret shooting the guy? Do you regret shooting the guy? And every time he says, no, I don't. Which should make you think, well, okay, he's a very bad person. But at the same time, like, he's not bad. He's just completely detached.
Yes.
He just doesn't care about anything. Like, he didn't care about the possibility of getting married. He didn't care about his promotion and moving to Paris. He didn't care about anything. And so why would he care about shooting someone?
Yeah, but what I meant to say was that these things are around us and people don't see them. Like these kinds of people and these kinds of feelings and these kinds of decisions.
Or like completely detached from anything.
So this is everywhere around us, but nobody wants to see it and look at it or like even talk about it. And that's why these things even kind of happen.
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking about. Like, it made me feel so weird that this is probably all true somewhere.
No, I completely agree. Like, I think when many people think about things like depression, and before we talked about becoming like a shutout and things like that, people imagine like people crying over and over and like shouting and getting angry at the world and things like that. I think for most people, it's just falling into this like well of apathy where you just stop caring more and more. You stop caring about everything. Like you stop caring about getting out of bed in the morning. You stop caring about what you're going to eat like for lunch. You stop caring about talking to other people. Of course you're sad probably, but you're not sad in the sense like, oh, I'm so sad, like this thing happened and I'm going to cry over it or like feel bad about it. You're just not feeling those things anymore. They're just not part of your life or like not part of your emotional sphere anymore. And I think this portrays it really, really well.
Yes, that's I can have to agree.
But at the same time, though, it does it in a way which is almost mocking, like not mocking, like not making fun of it, but at the same time, it doesn't do it to diminish it or devalue it. Just to say, like, yeah, there are people like this, and probably they're not bad people. They're not intrinsically bad. They're not like jerk guy. This person, he happened to kill another person, not because he had homicidal instincts, just because the possibility was there and he took it, which is kind of absurd. Usually we have instincts and like self-preservation stopping us from doing that. But he kind of gave up on all of that. And at the end of the trial, I guess we should get to the point.
Of course.
Yeah, like he is sentenced to death, right? It is not clear until the end because he has like there is appeal and there is a chance that actually they might revert the sentence. But
and the defense was pretty good. Like actually, he was kind of. Everybody was assuring him that it's not gonna come to that, but
he has like this last conversation with a priest.
Yeah, the priest conversation. Before the priest conversation, I have to mention one more moment. He was contemplating about just getting executed and what that entails, and he thinks about the gallows and the guillotine. And he remembers the moment when his father went to see it.
Yeah.
And I don't even know why the father wanted to go there, but he had to go, and he came back and he kept throwing up all day. And he said that when he remembered that, he had to curl under the blanket and just like this teeth were rattling, and he was like shivering, just feeling horrible. So this moment like really got to me somehow. That's like...
Yeah, he says that according to him, everyone should witness an execution.
Yeah.
He says like there should be like civic duty, everyone should do it. I don't know.
Yeah, he gets into this thought process and then he gets into such extremes that he says that if he ever gets out of this and doesn't get executed, he will go and he will watch every execution, and he will have the strongest joy to watch somebody being executed and beheaded.
Yeah.
And he says, I have written it down, that the joy of being able to watch somebody be executed made him curl under a blanket and have his teeth clatter. Yeah. And I was like,
well, because if you see someone else getting killed, it means you're not getting killed.
Yeah,
so it means essentially like you're living, which is, I guess, the highest, like it's the highest showing of you being alive. So I guess in a way it's the highest thrill you can get in life.
This was my, just to fulfill the duty or promise, this was my like depression mind duck moment.
Okay.
Like, somehow it got like a strong reaction in me somehow.
Yeah, the whole last section, I think in general was really, really interesting. The part that probably will stay with me the most is probably like, the funeral at the beginning, and then the ending, like him thinking about life in prison and how, how in like not having anything to do, like boredom is essentially the biggest punishment. And because it's really interesting to me, because before we had him literally spending a whole day just sitting at the window doing absolutely nothing, just smoking and watching
which is
people.
Absurd again. So,
But now that he's in prison and he has nothing to do, that really weighs on him. I don't know. I just felt like, as someone who's really afraid of having nothing to do, like that makes me really nervous. I always want to be doing something because I start fretting. I can't imagine when you're in prison and you have absolutely nothing to do the whole day. Yeah. And you know that for the next like 20 years of your life, you'll just wake up every day without nothing, without anything to do. Yeah. So
that is, yes.
Yeah.
So finally, sorry I interrupted you. The priest comes in to talk to him before the execution. He really gives it to him. Not the priest, but the main character really gives it to the priest.
Yeah.
He's like, get out, I don't have time for God.
Yeah.
It was something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the book ends very abruptly. I was really surprised. I thought the book was for sure end with him like getting beheaded or something. And he was just like, okay.
I was kind of expecting like this like to the end, I was kind of expecting this more open ending, just because I think it makes more sense this way.
Because he also described the way the guillotine was set up. He said it's strange that people imagine it on a pedestal, like going up the stairs and on like a platform, but no, it's on the ground. It's just like you walk. So I was sure this was gonna come up, like he was gonna be walking there, and these details, but that was not there.
But that's the point. Like, this is not supposed to be a story.
Yeah.
Right. It's not supposed to, even if you look at the structure of the story, like, it doesn't really make sense, right? There isn't like any arc. So why should there be an ending?
Okay.
I mean, like, I understand.
I didn't mind it. I was surprised.
I just wanted to say, like, that's why I wasn't really surprised when it just abruptly ended. And in my experience, like in this sort of books, it's not so strange.
So I guess we should end this with what he says at the very end. He says that he was thinking about all that happened and all that will happen and all the situation he's in, and he comes to a conclusion that he's still happy with it somehow. He's still kind of like happy, and he says that he will feel less lonely and he will feel much happier and much more accomplished. When the day of execution comes, and there will be a huge crowd of spectators, and they will all greet him with howls of, and I have to look this word up, execration. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. So that was an ending. Very heavy book. I felt very, very bummed out about this, but very interesting read.
Yeah. Again, I wrote in my notes, like the extreme apathy, where the main character lives, ultra cynic view on life is what I was looking for in this book.
Have you found it?
Yeah. So I was completely satisfied. Like, I wanted to read a book like that. It gave me everything I was looking for. But it didn't leave me, like, after reading, again, Journey to the End of the Night, which I read because I was looking for kind of like the same thrill. Like, reading that, like, just destroyed me. Like, it left me like,
can't wait for episode 1. Oh my God.
Like, I'm not joking. Like, I remember just hating myself for like a week. I couldn't stop. Couldn't stop hating myself, and just feeling bad about my life.
Well, coming up in the future episode.
But, after reading this book, this gave me like a very interesting insight into this kind of situations. It made me feel like, again, for certain things, like maybe I'm not the strange one feeling this way. Maybe other people can feel the same way. Yeah, overall, I finished it. I was like, okay, nice. Time to move back to epic fantasy about people using metal to kill and do magic. Okay.
I'm glad you have that side of you too, so you're not constantly just consuming depression.
No.
The tidbit I forgot to mention was that Kamel Daoud, I don't know how we pronounce his name, who is Algerian, wrote in 2013 or 14 like a novel to react to this novel.
Yeah.
Called the Meruso Investigation. That's the name of the main character. I can't pronounce it correctly, sorry. Merso. So he did the story from the point of view of the Arab.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was talking about, right? Yeah. So it was completely intentional. It's probably pretty angry.
Okay. Right, so thanks for reading another book together.
Yeah, thank you. I recommended this book, so I'm glad you gave it a shot.
I like that.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. You gave it your time, and I'm glad you didn't dislike it.
Of course. I almost like it more now than me choosing books. Because when I chose a book I want to read myself, I think it's less interesting than when I do this.
Okay.
Because I always choose the same thing.
Okay.
Like, I don't choose the same thing, but I know what I want, and then I either get it or I don't get it.
Okay.
And this podcast has been so nice to me personally to just read things like this. I would never read this.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate we can talk about it. That's much better than just reading it.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy that too, because I always enjoyed reading these books, but then, everyone like immediately turn off their brain every time I'm like, look at this pretentious
If I choose a book that I read myself, I'll just read it and it's done and I forget it.
Yeah.
And here I have something added to it, so I actually think about it more, so that's fun.
Yeah.
Right, so see you on the future episode.
Yeah, when I'll finally convince Philip to read Mistborn.
I do want to read that, and also 100 episodes will die.
Yeah. Yeah. French Depression Part 2.
But before that, 50th episode will be June, so
Yeah.
then we'll be alive.
Well, I mean, episode 50 to episode 99 would be Dune.
Oh my god. If we did all the books in as much detail as I wanted to, it could be that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a good idea.
Fair enough. Oh, I did have a Dune reference.
Is that a Dune reference?
Well, I think like the overall detachment and apathy of the
The main character.
of the main character is kind of like warm Leto.
Yeah, but Warm Leto still cares a little bit about stuff.
Does he?
Yeah.
Well, he says he doesn't.
He fell in love.
Well, yeah.
And he can just like relive orgies on a whim. So I think he wants to like...
orgies in his mind.
Yeah, he wants to have all the fun. Thanks a lot for listening. Tune in next week for Christina and Paul coming back to the podcast and a few surprising books on a catch-up episode, including some exciting erotica. Rate us on Apple Podcast or any platform you're using, and see you on the next one.